Hi, this is Nathan. We're just getting ready for a time of humor, excitement, and analysis. So why don't you get the whole family together and join us for another episode of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Croutons that you are supposed to use as a snack, not a topping?
Yes! That's a great idea. That's an excellent idea. We just have to, change the shape of them a little bit.
No, I think they stay the same, and I think we literally manufacture them in the same place.
Okay.
It's just a marketing campaign. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here today to talk about the 300th episode of Adventures in Odyssey, called Preacher's Kid.
The one about being a preacher's kid. Do they have any other ones that are about being preacher's kids?
I mean, the other ones in this saga.
Yeah. But that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it's got this is Donna Barkley's Reverend Jimmy.
Yes, exactly. And boy, does it show.
But she just goes the other direction, where Jimmy's like, oh, I gotta be perfect, let's try. And Donna's like, oh, I gotta be perfect, screw that.
Does she even do that, though? This is such a confusing
She kind of
episode.
accidentally is into it.
Yeah, well, and we'll get into it.
Yep.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
We will. So this is an episode that first aired February 4th of 1995, which is a little over a month since our previous one. Mm-hmm. It was track 3 on album 23, Twists and Turns.
Yeah.
There were both twists
and
turns.
as well as turns. And Rodney Rathbone in the album artwork. Is that this is the one where he busts through the skylight. That's the...
Oh, that's the artwork?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it didn't used to be. I've never...
Yeah, look at that weird art of Jason and Jack.
Oh, wow.
Notoriously
Yeah, I never
Jack.
saw that artwork, having listened to that episode a million times.
And I've only listened to that episode once or twice, but I always look at the artwork.
Yeah. I mean, as we discussed, I think on last week's or a couple weeks ago, we don't always look at the artwork, and sometimes we're like, wait, that's Young Wit?
Yeah. This is what he looks like?
Gross.
Colonial boy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is ancient.
He is without birth date. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure his birth certificate just says, Dawn of Time or BC or something like that.
This is the first episode of the Pastor George Barkley arc that it does not have a Paul McCusker credit. This one is written and directed by Marshall Younger. Now, we could point out Marshall Younger also wrote A Call for Reverend Jimmy, but McCusker directed that one. And Chris Fabry was a co-writer with McCusker on Pet Peeves. But this is the first one where McCusker, I mean, aside from just being a writer on the show, he has no credited involvement.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I had mixed feelings about this episode. The first listen through, I didn't remember it. I didn't know what was going to happen as far as what angle they were going to take on the preacher's kid thing. And I was really mad halfway through this episode.
Right. So it's one of those where listening, especially with a critical eye we do, you're going, okay, either is this show going to make Donna wrong, or is this show going to make George wrong?
Yes.
And you are expecting, oh yeah, they're gonna make Donna wrong.
Yeah, because they built it into that.
Right. And so it is one where initially you're like, oh boy, does this episode have problems? And then you get to the end and it's like, oh no, the problems are the point.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
No, I thought that it was a surprisingly countercultural, pointing out some flaws in church culture. At least that's how I took it. Or I was like, wow, we're talking about the, standard of perfection that we put on people just because their parents are pastors.
I know.
I'm surprised, Focus.
I'm here. I'm into it.
Yeah.
Cast wise for this episode, we have Joe Damon as Eric Myers. These are the three rebel kids in this episode. This is Eric's 5th appearance in the show. He is being voiced by, well, we already said he's being voiced by Joe Damon, but Joe Damon played Nicholas Martin, who was the main character in McGee and Me.
I don't think I've seen that.
Okay. Don't.
No,
Like,
okay.
It's another focus on the it's a focus on the family television show.
They make television shows?
I mean, it was probably like direct to VHS kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it was a kid and a cartoon named McGee, and they, I don't know, hang out.
So it was a live
and
action
learn
kid
morals.
and a cartoon. Okay,
Correct.
Okay. One of those shows.
It's Lizzie McGuire, but it's McGee and Me.
Is it like Lizzie McGuire, in which they use the cartoon as like comic relief?
I mean, kind of, although I think the cartoon was also the person kind of teaching the morals. I don't remember that show.
I mean, well, that's the case in Lizzie McGuire as well. I'm very well versed in Lizzie McGuire.
Okay. Well, maybe you should watch McGee and Me. Maybe we'll do that for the Patreon.
Yes, exactly.
There's only 10 episodes.
Huh. Well, now that you mention it, we'll talk off mic. Listeners, give us money to watch Focus on the... Honestly, if anybody just sent us the McGee and Me VHSs, if they had them, I have a VHS player. I'd watch them. I would.
Yeah. DM one of us for a P.O. box.
Yeah.
We also have the character of Kevin, who is voiced by Zachary McFarlane. This is the only episode that Zachary McFarlane voices a character in. This is the only episode with the character of Kevin.
Poor guy.
And
then didn't make it.
Yeah. And then we also have Lydia Rice Mueller as Marcia, who's the other girl.
Yeah.
And this is her 5th appearance in an episode.
Yeah, well, Marcia's like Donna's friend, essentially. Like, Marcia's the gateway drug in this situation where there's the bad friends and Marcia's Donna's connection to it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's very much like I was listening to this episode going, man, I don't know any of these kids. Like they're just
I thought that Eric was going to be Jack. I was really confused
Yeah.
that Eric wasn't Jack because
Yeah.
it seemed like there was romantic stuff there and I'm like, what?
Right.
I thought
Right. Well, and I think at this point like Jack doesn't show back up again. Like he's until like album 50.
Yeah.
But he's done on the show, and so I wonder if like it was maybe written as Jack or like I don't know what the circumstances in which he stopped being on the show were if he like left the show or if they just stopped writing him. So this could have maybe been Jack at some point. Although I do have a little fun trivia-ish thing about that as we go on.
Okay, awesome.
Nah, I mean loose connection.
Loose connection.
But it did, listening to it and not being super familiar with these characters, I was like, oh, is this just like the classic, like, hey, we're going to throw 3 kids in here who are, you know, we're just going to make up 3 characters for this so that we can have some bad kids. And like, no, they're actually like, I mean, yes, in the case of Kevin, but Marcia and Eric have been in before. And I think I really appreciate that how they let things fall. So like, Eric, when I looked him up, I was like, oh, he's the kid in Where's Your Daddy?
Oh, okay.
And so I'm really glad that they let him go to the hayride while the rest of the kids were delinquents.
Yeah, because
it would have been really easy to write him as one of the 3 delinquents, and I like appreciate that they didn't.
Yeah, that's really cool that you made that connection. I didn't know that. And the Where's Your Daddy is the one where his parents divorced and he gets made fun of for it?
Everyone keeps asking, you know,
Where's your dad?
Where's your dad? Whatever. And he is in prison.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so and there are episodes like that. That's kind of Eric's character up until this point. And so I'm glad that they didn't like make him one of the delinquents
because his dad was in prison. Yeah.
Right. Like it would have been an easy move and they didn't, you know, do it. And I appreciate that.
Eric, what a guy.
Yeah. We also have Mrs. Erskine being voiced by Joan Gerber.
Yes, the chatty Cathy of the church.
Yeah. Mrs. Erskine was previously mentioned in Georgia Under Pressure, just in passing. And Joan Gerber, we have covered in 2 different times on this show.
Interesting.
You know who else she's played?
The wiki's loading, so tell me.
We've got Miss Barfield in the Case of the
Really?
Secret Room.
Really?
Uh-huh. And Mabel.
Oh,
in A Bite of
okay.
Applesauce
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
Battle.
yeah, I remember
which is
we
when
talked
I
about-
remembered having talked about her. So I saw the name on the wiki and was just like, oh, Joan Gerber. I know that name. Like, I know I've looked her up before.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Well, and her name sounds familiar. Or, I'm sorry, her voice sounds familiar now that I think about it.
Yeah, she does sound kind of Miss Barfield-y.
yeah.
Like, that's the one that I think of, too.
Well, and just how they, like, enunciate certain words.
Yeah. And then we also have our classic, hey, this person has another job in Adventures in Odyssey, so we'll just have them fill in as a voice actor. We've got Bob Luttrell as the police officer.
Classic.
And Dave Arnold as Richard.
Who is the head of the pastoral committee,
Correct.
which sits George down at the end of the episode.
Yep. All right. This should play the promo.
There's a preacher's kid under fire on the next Adventure in Odyssey. Donna Barclay thinks everyone expects her to be the perfect pastor's daughter, but nobody thinks that after her little accident. Will the church reconsider having George as pastor because of Donna? Find out next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
I'm getting kind of Twin Peaks vibes from that
like
music.
Kind of spooky, romantic.
Yeah, Twin Peaks.
Yeah, we get
Love Twin Peaks.
That was a very. It feels kind of like when the trailer gives away too much. I feel like there was a lot of the plot in there.
Did it? But I feel like it's setting up the thing that the episode sets up as well, is like, oh no, this is going to be a problem for George, and then it's not.
Yeah, that's
So like
fair.
so it might not be giving away a lot, but
Maybe that's
also-
because there's not a lot to give away.
also the guy being like, there's gonna be trouble for Donna. I don't know. His weird like. He seems into the idea of Donna getting trouble in a way that's kind of weird.
Donna. Why? Why, mysterious radio man? Are you so fascinated with the troubles of this teenager?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the episode begins with we get a Chris intro,
We do get
and
a
we
Chris
get a
intro.
good teaser and
A crintro.
A crintro. Ooh. Sounds like a topping for salad, like a crouton's cousin or something like that.
All right, and then after the crintro, we have Kevin, Marcia, and Eric all, sitting in the back row of the church with Donna.
Yeah.
And they are loudly searching for some gum.
Very important. You get the whole whisper down the lane thing where they're like, do they have gum? I don't know. Ask her. Does she have gum? Well, I don't know. My purse is all the way over there. Can you grab it?
It's really well constructed and well engineered.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's totally something that has happened in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody always has gum in church.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you ask,
it's
you
Sarah
can
Deckard.
Yes, there she is. Does she listen to the show?
No, but her brother Adam was on it.
That's true. That he was. Christmas episode 2019.
Friend of the pod by proxy, Sarah Deckard, was always the source of gum at church.
Yes, by proxy.
Yeah, there's always the one person with gum, and so we get that here. It's a fun scene. It's like the Mark Drury's sound design, real solid.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like we get like a good sense of place, and they're like the being just like, well, you hear George's sermon going on in the background. They're all being just like a little too loud.
Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah, well, and then the scene ends with Mrs. Erskine. She yells at the kids, essentially,
Right.
for being too loud about passing gum because somebody spilled their purse.
Yeah.
Which, I get that. I don't know. I think growing up in the church that I did, where it was very passive-aggressive, like, people don't talk if they get made uncomfortable by that sort of thing.
But it's not just the passive aggressiveness. It's the just like the fact that like the church we grew up going to is more chill.
Yeah.
Not in like a gross way or whatever, but
No.
just in like it wasn't as like traditional or formal.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
I mean,
there
it was pretty
always
in the middle.
There was
but like,
older generations that would wear suits, and there was younger
Sure.
people that would wear like normal clothes.
right.
You know,
A t-shirt and a baseball cap. Like,
Oh yeah.
there was
Oh,
plenty of that.
yeah. Baseball caps I feel like were frowned upon in church because you're not supposed to wear hats in church,
Dude.
which never made sense to me because I love wearing hats and I don't see how it's disrespectful. But maybe
I mean,
it is.
there are I know people of the younger generation who wear caps every week.
That's fair.
So it's not like previous guest and friend of the pod, Adam Deckard, almost always is wearing a baseball cap.
He does.
church.
Yes, he's got his fin.
Yeah. So like yeah, there's that, and it's also like it also was helped by the fact that there was like a student section at church.
Yes.
Where like all of the kids sat in the same area, like,
and it was always just the
basically,
louder
like,
area.
right? You like either sat with your parents,
Yeah.
or you all sat in a group together with like the youth leaders.
Yep.
And that was just a good system, so you didn't get situations like this.
See, Odyssey Church with is it Odyssey Community Church? We'll just
Sure.
go OCC. That works. All right. Yeah. Be better. Just make a student section and keep Mrs. Erskine away from the meddling kids that annoy her.
No, she's the meddling one.
It's true. She does stick her nose in everybody's business.
Yeah. And when literally the next scene is Mary chastising Donna because of what Mrs. Erskine told her.
Yep.
And then Jimmy bursts in to say that the baby said their first word and it was carrot.
Yeah.
And then he exits the scene and George says, "Hey, Mrs. Erskine told me that you were bad, Donna."
Yeah, you were bad as well. And it's this terrible thing where it's like Donna is getting yelled at by her mom, and then her dad comes in and is like, "We need to have a conversation." Mrs. Erskine, and Donna's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
This woman, like...
Yep.
And for me, like, as a listener, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Mrs. Erskine went up to the pastor and the pastor's wife, told them both separately the same story.
Yeah, it's bad. She's bad. Thumbs down to Mrs. Erskine.
Even though she wants to help at the end of the episode.
Right, well, like, right, she maybe realizes a bit of the error of her ways by the end.
Maybe.
I'm
not convinced.
Okay, she at least apologizes.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is up in everyone's business. She's like stereotypical church lady.
Yes.
So there's a little bit more where George just tells Donna, like, yeah, you're going to be under more scrutiny
yeah.
because you're the pastor's kid.
People are looking at you to set an example.
Right.
To which I was like, "George, you shut your mouth right now."
Yep.
I was so mad. This was when I was like, "Oh my gosh, this episode might tilt me."
Right.
If Donna's the bad guy here, I'm gonna full tilt. This is
Right.
gonna be a rough episode
But
of the pod.
luckily, this episode very quickly could have modesty is the best policy did.
Yep.
It was like flirting with it.
It was so close.
And then and then it pulls out at the end and is like, no, actually, we need to rethink this.
No, yeah. Well, we get an amazing George monologue that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, I am so.
But here, listening to it, especially the first time, I was like, "George, shut up. George, shut up. Don't put more pressure on your kid,
no,
please."
it's bad. And then she's like, yeah, and especially like because those friends you were sitting with just got in trouble for playing at an abandoned house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you shouldn't go to that abandoned house, or you haven't been there or anything about that. And, we get expositional dialogue where Barry's like, "Well, what's that?" Or, "We don't know anything about that." And, "Oh, it's this old abandoned house where all the cool kids go to hang out.
Right.
There's nothing like that where we live, is there? Is there a cool abandoned house where kids go to hang out?
I'm amazed that you're not in the abandoned house scene. That feels like you are so close. Like obviously, obviously, I'm not cool enough to be in the abandoned house circuit.
Yeah, no.
But Andrew feels like that's right in your wheelhouse.
You see,
so I'm kind of
my
amazed.
friends were all like abandoned spots in the woods stuff.
Oh,
like, we were
right, you're
finding
wilderness people.
We are wilderness people, sure. That's what we call ourselves.
But like you've got a lot of like hiking friends. And whatnot.
Oh yeah. Well, and I find cool stuff and that's abandoned like that in like the middle of the woods, and it's very rarely entire houses, but it's like, oh, you can like, oh, look at all the sophomores that, you know, hit their jewels on these graffiti covered rocks and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like,
Yep.
that's what all the edgy kids do.
Right. I mean, that feels very Pokenberry.
That is very
Foreshadowing.
Five shadowing.
Get out of here.
Sorry.
And yeah.
Please.
So then George tells Donna that she needs to like sit up front with her mom at church on Sunday.
Yeah. Which,
if they were,
it's tough because it's just gum. If Donna had actually done something, I get it. This was a second time.
Like, right. This is the thing: is they set it up as like this is the second time Mrs. Erskine has complained. It's hard because it's like it's not anything that like disrupted the service. It just annoyed one person.
Yeah.
But I also do kind of get the sentiment of, at least for this initial one, of, hey, like, you're just going to take a week off and sit with us.
Exactly. Yeah.
That, I'm like, that totally seems fine and reasonable to me. As we go on, that will become less so.
No.
But here initially, I'm like, no, I get that.
That's a fair.
Like,
it's a slap on the wrist. That's like, okay, and it's literally one church service worth of punishment, and that's fine.
Yeah, and it's just to be like, hey, look, like, you know,
don't do that.
Be responsible.
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel like a punishment that is being doled out to her because she's the pastor's kid. It feels like
you misbehave.
My parents would do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like. Would have done the same thing. I don't think they'd do it anymore.
Yeah.
They don't control me.
I'm independent now. I file my own taxes.
Yep.
It's tax season, everybody. Be on the lookout for those W-2s.
Especially when this episode is released, we are like in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Tax season's going to be... Whew. I need to file my taxes. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yay.
Daddy Biden's got that tax credit coming for me because I haven't gotten any stimulus money. So I got that to look forward to.
Fun, yeah.
Or I won't get it, and I'll just get let down again by the government.
Well, Andrew, you shouldn't put your faith in the government.
No, clearly
put your faith in God.
Amen.
Woo!
Focus on the family. I missed, and I looked at the elbow.
It
was my mostly thumb.
There it is. No, yeah. That was me calling out focus.
Yeet.
You love to say it.
We love to say it.
I love it when religious organizations lobby.
Especially for their own agenda.
Yeah, makes me super happy. So
Quakers lobby, but it's about like not killing people.
Yeah.
They're like, excuse me, sir.
Can we
Don't
be
kill
pacifists? So this will be fun to edit. Yeah, then immediately Mrs. Erskine comes up front.
Oh, after the service. Yeah.
Oh wait, no. There was one other thing I wanted to point out. Which is just we've talked about before, the fact that they have church Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. We also find out that there is a Wednesday night thing as well this episode.
Well, and there's a Friday night Bible study.
I know.
This poor...
Church every night of the week, am I right?
Yeah.
Am I?
I don't know that that's right. I mean, it could be. I suppose there are worse things. It just depends on what kind of church and how the members are feeling and such. Anywho.
How are you feeling, Andrew?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Dylan.
My bad. We can get into it off mic.
Yeah. So, like you said, Mrs. Erskine comes up to Donna afterwards and is like, oh, it's so nice to see you sitting in the front with your family, to which I'm like, are you just rubbing this in? Like, this woman who... Is she an elder in the church? Like, she has no authority.
Well, I mean, she is on the pastoral committee.
Okay. All right. Okay. If she's on the pastoral committee, then I can...
No, then she's still too much.
Yes, yeah.
She knows what she's doing, right? She's
really
not
hope so.
innocent. Because she's then like, oh, you're you're coming to this, can't wait to see you tomorrow night at the senior citizens dinner. And Donna's like, I'm not even a senior in high school.
Yeah, but
and
then she
she's
guilts
like,
her
well,
into
your
going.
whole family's gonna be there, and
She doesn't even say that. She says your whole family is invited, and it's to thank our class wanted to throw a party to thank your dad for it, and so you gotta be there. Like, that's the gist that Donna gets from that scene, and I'm just like,
yeah,
we're just gonna ignore that this is a person that you're talking to, and that, like, I mean, I get it. Maybe that's how things were with the old pastor. I don't know. We don't know that, but not my favorite character.
No. She might be better than Kevin, as we are about to get into. We then have a scene where Donna's telling, like, Marcia that she just, and Eric and Kevin, that she's, like, just got roped into going to this dinner, and they're like, oh, we were supposed to go to the movies. And I think it's really important to point out that Donna's like, oh yeah, I guess we were, I'm gonna go to this thing instead, I guess. Like, she's not at this point, like, I think at this point Donna is not, like, there's friction there, but she's not wanting to rebel or anything. She's just like, yeah, okay, like, I'll do that. Like, no, it was gonna be nice to go to the movies,
really
but, like,
rebel much.
I mean, she eventually runs away from home, but, like,
that's later. Yeah,
no, I mean, in this episode, she runs away, like, the Friday night.
Oh,
okay,
that's
I guess
fair.
runs away from home is strong.
Yeah,
she sneaks out.
yeah, she sneaks out.
Yeah, that's.
I was like, wait a minute.
No. So
she sneaks out and burns down a house.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it. So yeah, then Donna leaves the conversation, kind of bummed out, but not, like, mad. It doesn't feel mad. And then we have a conversation between Marcia, Eric, and Kevin.
Oh my gosh.
In which Eric's like, oh, because she goes away, and he's like, oh yeah, you'll still be able to go to the hayride Friday night, right?
Yep.
And then Eric's like, I think I'm gonna ask Donna at the hayride. And Kevin's like, well, you can't. She's a preacher's kid. That would be like going out with Moses.
Yes, or Moses' daughter. And then he just goes on this whole thing about, like, oh, he's gonna...
I heard George, like, quizzes everyone.
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna have to wear a formal wear to a monster truck rally. Like, all these terrible jokes and stereotypes and whatever.
Which leads to Eric daydreaming.
Yep.
About a really cute date where he and Donna go to a drive-in movie, and he writes her a poem, which, as I had a conversation with former guest and friend Libby Haverstick this past week, in which we were just like, regardless of quality, if any time a third party reads a love poem, it is cringy. It doesn't matter what that poem contains. It is always bad.
Yep. It's like
those things need to stay between one person and another, and maybe not at all.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about, like, high school guys feeling like they should write poetry.
I did it. I mean,
of course you did. Like, right. Of course.
No, and I still do it. It's something that is fun. My brother, friend of the pod, Brendan DeSabo, does write music.
We are name dropping like mad.
Yeah, I mean, they're flying like cats and dogs. It's raining cats and dogs, and they're all names. But yeah, so he used to write music and would sing and had all this art and stuff like that. And when I got older, I was like, man, I need to figure out like what's my art? Like, what's the art that I'm good at? And I can't sing for the life of me. You've heard me sing on the pod if it's been left in. We don't know. But, I can't sing and I can't write music very well. So I dabbled in poetry a little bit, and it's real cringy. It's so cringy. It has the shelf life of McDonald's French fries. I'll tell you what, my high school poetry, I look at that and it's just dripping with angst.
Wait, don't McDonald's French fries never get moldy?
They never get moldy.
So their shelf life is eternal.
but they're not good after 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is poetry.
Yeah, exactly. When my McDonald's fries analogy is better than I anticipated.
Yeah, my version of that was I made a girl some mixtapes.
Yeah, that was Brendan's move. Brendan made girls mixtapes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a strong... I've made playlists, but it's not quite the same. You know,
There's not blood, sweat, and tears in it.
It's not
a physical object.
Yeah. I mean, a Spotify playlist that you share with somebody means a lot, and it's nice, but boy, I miss when you could flirt with giving somebody a mixtape.
Yeah. Hey, go follow me on Spotify.
Yeah, go follow me on Spotify. It's linked to my Facebook account because we live in a simulation.
We will put links in the description if I remember.
It's my favorite caveat.
If I remember.
Yeah. Should put that at the end of every sentence.
So then George pops in from the back seat of the car and is like, oh, I gotta like edit this poem. Man, that's not appropriate. And also this movie, went against some verse in Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
A verse which is about like not eating pigs.
Is it really?
So I guess the point he was making is that, someone ate pig in the episode.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, exactly.
Bible joke.
It's right. Whatever. And then it's a dream.
Yep. Yeah, and it has like that Arthur transition music where it's like doodle-doodle-doo.
Yeah.
And it's
Also,
like fading in. Hilarious
that in Eric's daydream that he knows that correct verse of scripture.
Yeah, oh yeah. And it was a very vivid daydream. And like George is like, oh, is there enough room between you guys in the front? And he like crawls up in between them.
It's very well engineered. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I see the picture of it quite well.
Incredibly vividly.
Also, just like drive-in movie date. Great.
Great idea.
Yeah. I mean, drive-ins are back, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This summer. I mean, I said that last summer about drive-ins, and I didn't go to a single one. But hopefully I'll go.
No, you went to a drive-in with me? Oh, 2 summers ago.
2 summers ago.
Yeah.
Remember COVID happened?
Right.
And then nothing happened.
COVID was prime time for drive-ins.
Yeah, it was. And maybe that made me not want to go to it because I'm just indie trash.
Right, and also you were single.
That's true. Was I? There was times when I was and times where I wasn't.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
Yep.
So yeah, I was as this got more and more like hyper, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a dream.
Yeah.
It started out and I was like, how'd they get to a drive-in? But awesome.
Okay,
I'm in.
Delightful.
All right, poem, whatever. You do you, man. Oh, this is Eric's daydream.
Yeah. And it's a nice daydream, and Odyssey doesn't do
sweet.
daydreams much, but it's fun.
It only does them in that like Trent episode.
Yeah, very Scrubs-esque.
See.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. And then we cut to the banquet where Donna is bored to death.
Yep.
And
on brand for Donna. Donna being bored is like one of Odyssey's favorite things to just be.
Yeah, I mean, right. That's what other emotions do teenage girls have?
I don't know. Are they complex beings?
No, they're one dimensional.
They're so like they're like 2-dimensional max. Okay? Like they could be a cartoon. They don't have like needs or anything like that.
No. And Jimmy is having fun doing other stuff, and then there's
no. He's having fun because there's somebody. Is an old dude that's delusional doing a puppet show with a zucchini and his dentures.
Right. And then
Which I was like, all right, let's go for it. Like, that's
and then
the show I want to hear.
Also, they try and find all 50 states in someone's liver spots.
Yeah, that's a joke that I was like, okay, that's a little out of left field for you, Odyssey.
Yeah, no thanks. Thumbs down.
Thanks. Liver spots are not good. I think I found Florida. Is what she says.
Yeah. And then we go to a scene where what? Yeah, it's it's a really good scene where Jimmy It's Jimmy and Stuart and Normal.
Yes.
And
Oh my
Jimmy,
gosh, yeah.
And Jimmy, like, they set up very quickly at the beginning that Normal is there.
Yes.
Then Jimmy is monologuing to Stuart, and you're assuming everything he's saying
Is
about like how, because
Yeah.
he's talking about like how to care for whatever, and you think he's talking about like dogs.
Feed it and give it water.
Right.
And they're, the hardest thing to get over is how smelly they are. And then
Right.
just...
Right. It's not
That's
normal.
my advice
it's
on girls.
Women. Yeet. And then George walks in and goes, "Why is Stuart wearing sunglasses?" She was like, "We were just having some man talk."
Yes. I was just telling him man things.
It's such a well-constructed joke that's kind of out of place in this episode, and also like not the kind of thing we typically see from Odyssey.
No,
and
but
it
it's
just made me
hilarious.
happy. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the old misdirection thing.
Yeah.
And I think that they must have had fun writing for Jimmy at this point in the show, like
Yes.
kind of letting him grow up and letting his humor develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Jimmy's a goof and it's fun.
Yeah.
So then
This is when does Donna talk to George about Friday?
He's about to. He first talks to because Donna asks like if she can sit back with the other kids again.
Yeah.
And George is like, well, what I'd really like is for all of you guys to sit in the front row. And Donna's like, well, we're not gonna, like, they're not gonna do that. They're kids. Like, we don't want to do that.
What are you gonna
like,
do? Like, be everybody's dad? Like,
right. Well, and he's like, I don't see why it should be any different sitting in the front row or the back row. And like, boy, do you not get it, George Barkley? I mean, I have sat in the front row.
And the back row.
It's never, I'm not usually a back row guy. I'm like a second, third row kind of guy.
I like the sides. The sides are the best.
I am always uncomfortable in the front row.
Yeah.
I will sit there. Like, I'm not a child. I will sit there if, like, my friends are sitting there because I like them more than I like the slight discomfort that comes from being in the front row.
But
if I am choosing not choosing the front row, unless it's a concert.
And if I have the option, definitely.
Front row every time.
I will
but it
cry
hasn't been
and
a
they will sweat on me.
concert for over a year. Yeah.
The light in my eyes is dying.
So then Donna brings up about going to the hayride Friday night, and George is like, "Whoa, you already agreed to come to the Bible study on
Donna's
Friday."
Like, what Bible study? And he's like, duh, the Bible study that we do every Friday night about parenting that I need you to be there for, that you said that you were going to be there for. And Donna's like, I don't remember. It's a really tough George moment because it felt to me like he was being really critical of Donna and putting a lot of a lot of expectations on her to fulfill functions that she isn't directly responsible for.
Right. Like, I get on one hand the, hey, you committed to this thing, you can't back out on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I also don't like the way, like, I don't like George's lack of flexibility and kind of the pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
Where he's very much like, and I need you that, like, everyone's counting on you. This was like, there's not any, like, I understand the benefit to her being there and, like, Jimmy being there. And, like, I think, like, oh, yeah, that would have been cool. I also think it's not a great move for him as a parent to be like, hey, like, if you bail on this, like, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Like he could just put his foot down and say, no, like, you agreed to this, you're coming to it. Mm-hmm. Or he could say, hey, you agreed to this, people are expecting this from you, but if you want to make your own choice, that's on you.
Yeah.
Instead, he's like, you have to come to this, I'm not giving you an option, and I'm doing that because everybody needs you to be there, and otherwise, like, I'm going to look bad. And I'm just like, all right, George, dial it back a little bit.
Yeah. All right, let's just... Well, and you definitely get the vibe this episode where the George is very anxious about his position of power in the church.
Yeah.
Where he is not secure in his in his role. And he's mentioned that before in the saga that, like, we, obviously listening through it in order of a character arc, you could examine, kind of how the character is developed. And it's interesting that seed of insecurity that we've seen in previous episodes totally shows up here, and it creates all this conflict because really all he had to do was either be like, hey, you gave me your Monday, I can give you this Friday because you went to this thing and it was super boring. Like, I could see a parent doing that and me being like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. It seems fair. There's another kid. There doesn't need to be both of us there, and Jimmy is already excited about being there. Or, yeah, he can just put his foot down and be like, sorry, I mean, you made plans. Like, it's not...
Right. Yeah, it's just this... Yeah,
I don't want to be the bad guy, but you said you'd do something. So.
Right. Like, he doesn't... I guess the problem is that he puts his foot down, but not in a way that is at all compassionate.
Yes, exactly.
Where, like, I don't think he's in the wrong to say, you have to come to this.
No, yeah, because if she said that she was going to, it would make sense that would be the expectation.
I'm okay with that. I just don't like the way he goes about it and, like, the kind of brutalness of it.
Especially how clearly she forgot it. Like, when she's faced with it, she was like, oh, that happened. Okay. And I get, maybe that was written just to get her out of the plot hole that, like, oh, she should have known about this and shouldn't have said that she was going to go on the hayride. But still, I don't know. It's not a fun moment for George.
Yeah.
And Donna is really, really upset by it. Rightfully so.
Right. This is the other portion of it that is, like, that makes it a bummer is that she is, like, she clearly doesn't take it well either.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just yeah, okay. Like,
I would say that
it's this thing that's been building for her where, like, right, she's feeling the pressure of being the preacher's kid, having to do things the right way, and also feeling like she hasn't gotten to do her own thing in a while, that other stuff keeps coming up. Yeah,
and it's really hard to have her parents not sympathize with her in that. Mm-hmm. But also, you can see it from George's point of view, and to be fair, and to, like, the episode does come full circle. So in the moment that it is really frustrating here, we do get some payoff later.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and then it's a conversation between Marcia and Donna then, where Donna's, saying, like,
talking about the hayride.
I really want to try and go. I'm not able to. I kind of got the feeling that, Eric was going to ask me, and that was going to be really great. And
then
and Marcia's like, well, Eric kind of assumed that you weren't going to be able to go, so he's already asked Allison Davis.
Yeet.
This is what I was alluding to way back in the beginning, possibly Jack's younger sister.
I don't know.
It's a small town. They have the same last name.
It's gotta be. Is she a character that is...
This is she doesn't exist on the wiki. I don't know
canonically
enough about
that's
Jack's family.
Right.
Maybe it's a cousin, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna assume that she is.
I say we stick our flag in this portion
is,
of the Odyssey canon and say that that's what that is.
Right. Allison Davis, younger sister of Jack Davis. Because Jack's a little bit older than Donna, and Eric and Donna are maybe the same age, but Allison could be a little bit older than Eric. It could all work out. Be real clean.
Everything could come up Milhouse.
Also, and that call back to last episode, and that could be a good setup for I think the reason we brought it up earlier is I was like, well, was Eric rewritten to, like, was Eric originally Jack and then rewritten? Who knows? But funny that they then have Allison Davis here, because Jack couldn't have asked her to go to the hayride.
That would have been a very different episode.
I'm saying, like, if this had been originally written for Jack, then they changed that as well.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have had him ask someone with his same last name under any circumstance.
Unless... No.
It would be, like, there's no reason you need to, so why would you do it?
Exactly. Made up name.
Yeah.
In my head, when I heard that, I didn't think Jack Davis. I thought, wow, that name sounds really made up. She's got the first... it's a Jack Davis or a Jeffrey Robert Travis.
Right. The multiple first names. Because, a Jack Allen.
Ah, yes.
Some may say. So yeah, then Marcia decides to go full villain and is like, "You've changed, Donna."
Yeah. You're not the same as you were before, yada yada yada. And we get this that honestly, they're the villain of this episode, I feel like, is Donna's peers that are just so toxic about her being this preacher's kid. Like, that's where the idea of like the perfection comes from. It comes from
Erskine
and
these kids, but these kids are saying like, oh, like you do act perfect now, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting too.
Did she ever? But the thing is, like, Donna never was the rebel kid.
No, she wasn't.
Like, there wasn't. I don't know.
It's just she's got more responsibility now.
Yeah.
And so she's like less available.
Yeah.
But it also, I mean,
But
it does. I was gonna say it does kind of feel like kids are dumb and ill-equipped to handle change.
Ugh.
So yeah. So Donna's like, you know what? I haven't changed. I'm going on that hayride.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, you get it, Donna.
You go ingest all that hay and definitely don't have an allergic reaction. Yeah. Every year I go on a hayride.
I love a hayride.
I love a hayride too, but boy does my nose not.
Yeah.
And then the hay gets in your shoes and it's there for like 3 weeks.
All right, maybe hayrides aren't for Andrew.
They're not for a part of me, that's for sure. The lungs part of me.
Just wear a hazmat suit.
Yeah, I'll be fine. Masks are cool now.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I'll just wear an N95. It'll be great.
Yeah. And so then we get a scene of the family. George saying like, "Hey, Jimmy, can you go upstairs and get Donna for dinner or whatever?" And Jimmy's like, "Oh, yeah, she is not there. I just checked." And everyone's like, "Oh, have you seen her? Have you seen her?" No, what? And then we cut to Donna riding in a car with Kevin and Marcia.
Yeah, I guess so.
And they're not going to the hayride.
Yeah. Buzz, we're not aiming for the truck.
Yeah, they're like, did you really want to just like hang out and see Eric and Allison at the hayride? Like, no, we're skipping it and we're going to the Donovan house.
The Donovan house.
Bum, bum, blah.
Yeah.
40 years ago today, the Donovans disappeared.
Dun, dun, dun. And some say that on this night, or there's a light flickering in the top bedroom.
Right.
window.
Yeah. Classic like small town kids ghost story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
then,
let's go look at this old condemned house.
Right. And then Donna is like, well, okay, I don't want to go.
Yeah, I don't want to go.
I wanted to go on the hayride. I don't want to do this. This doesn't sound like that's an abandoned place. We're not supposed to be there.
It just doesn't sound fun. To which I was like, yeah, that's fair. And to be honest with you, they go there and they don't do anything fun.
Right.
There is no part of this trip.
Like, it's just the struggle with Donna in this episode and why it's like hurts even more that everyone comes down so hard on her. Is like in every situation she's acting in a way that feels the correct way.
She's being true to herself.
Like, yeah, and like, but she feels like a human being.
Yeah.
Like
she gets criticism
like she's trying to get someone
peers.
gum and then gets in trouble for being a little bit too loud.
Yep.
She's bored at an elderly picnic. Like, of course.
Fine, of course.
Like she didn't remember that she had made Friday commitments and wants to go do something fun with a boy she's interested in. And so she's sad when she finds out that she can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally understandable. And then she gets goaded by Marcia into being like, you're a goody two-shoes now. And Donna's like, well, I can't be a goody two-shoes. I guess I will just skip and do the thing I want to do. And then they're going and she's like, oh, this isn't the thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to go on a hayride. You guys are going to go to like an abandoned house and like do bad stuff.
Yeah.
Which is like the way I would feel.
Exactly. I'm like, I've seen horror movies. What?
Yeah.
You want to check this place out now?
Right. And it's not like, ooh, pastor's kid. It's like, kid who like I don't know.
This doesn't sound like a fun evening to me
at
all.
Right, like it sounds unenjoyable and like I could get in trouble, and I was not a kid who wanted to get into trouble. So like, yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
Right.
Yeah.
So Donna's like, okay, like I'm not going, and they're like, all right.
Yeah.
We didn't expect you to anyways. We know you've changed. Like, yeah. And you're no fun anymore. And
Yeah.
Donna's like,
all
right, whatever, I'm going.
Yeah, just screw you. I'm
Right.
in.
And so it's like every circumstance she just feels
Yeah.
like real, and it's similar to like it's her going to the haunted house is Aubrey getting goaded in to driving.
Yep. Yeah. Very much the same vibe where it was like there was initial pushback.
Right. Well,
and
it's that same thing about like, oh, like in this one your dad's a pastor, in that one your parents became Christians, and now you're too good for us.
Yep.
That's just like the more extreme version of this. Although in this one, they burn down a house.
Yeah, with a lantern. So they go into this house
No,
with this old-timey lantern that's presumably
Kevin left a
candle.
lantern there, and Donna's like, oh, so you were planning this the whole time. And then he's like, I thought it would have more effect, like a cooler effect than a flashlight. Which feels like they wrote, like, they realized, like, oh, we have to find a way to burn this house down. I guess they're using a lantern, and then they just kind of like yada yada'd it.
Yeah, that very much is very loose
Like
and thrown together.
Right. It could have been like them smoking, but like they were like, no, like they're church kids. Like Donna would probably get out of there quickly. We don't want to be that edgy.
Yeah.
I guess like they just got
had
a
a
lantern
lantern?
for
Yeah.
effect. Sure.
What, did they decide to have a campfire inside the house, and that was what burned
Right,
it down?
Yep. And so, yeah, then the lantern, like something scares them. Oh, a cat scares them.
Yep.
Which,
yeah.
boy, is that cat dead? I think that cat's dead.
That cat is cooked, and the wallpaper's gone too because Jack.
Aaron,
Kevin.
Kevin is scared by the wallpaper.
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh, the wallpaper's so ugly, and they're like, and all the girls scream, and they go, oh, Kevin, you shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Like, oh,
and then the cat screeches, and the lantern falls over and starts a fire, and then they go like, oh,
right.
let's grab some sheets to try and put out the fire.
I know.
And then it just starts going up, and the fire's really sizzling now, and then it catches the curtains, and they just abandon ship, and then we cut to George's Bible study.
Yeah, where he's talking about keeping your kids in line, and knock on the door.
Well, so yeah, he's speaking on Proverbs 22:6, and actually has like this nice thing of being where it talks about like, you know, the like if a child is raised in a good house, like they'll turn out well is essentially what the proverb is. And then he's like, this is controversial because like sometimes people are like, well, like if, you know, kids grow up and they like leave the church, like is it the parent's fault? And I'm like, thank you for acknowledging that. And like, that is a controversial passage that reason. And like, no, I don't think so.
Me neither.
And that's, I think, also the point George is making. And like, I don't know, I liked it.
No,
I was just like,
I said,
cool.
this episode of Odyssey was surprisingly like pointing out it was surprising in how it was poignantly directed about the negatives that exist within church culture and that exist around church culture. And I was like, wow, all right, I'll take it.
So then the police officer shows up and is, you know, Mary and George both go out there. There's like a nice thing of like the knocking happens and Mary goes out to get it, and then like George continues talking and like we hear it in the background. It's just like well staged scene.
Yeah.
And then George is like, all right. And then Mary's like, George, you got to come out here too. And it's the police officer with Donna, and he's just like, look, like, here's the situation. She was with some kids. They burned down the condemned Donovan house. No one's pressing charges because the house was condemned. It's probably going to go down anyways. But
and no one was hurt.
Right.
But you know, obviously.
Yeah. This is, you know,
not
good. And then the police officer tells Donna that he's disappointed in her.
That's so tough, where she's like, Donna, I don't want to ever see you doing this stuff again. And I'm like, I'm sorry, who died and made you father to this woman? Like, are you kidding me?
It is just like weird small town thing.
Yeah, it was
where
very
it's
much like Stars Hollow.
Where it's like this guy probably goes to church with her
Yeah.
and is like, "Come on, Donna," or like you know, they
I
grew
just
up
watched
together.
the episode of
like-
Gilmore Girls where Dean breaks up with Rory and
the whole town shuns him?
Yeah. And Kirk comes in and is like, "This guy was just the worst. It's all my fault. I should have stopped you from going out with him."
Oh man, I need to watch more Gilmore Girls again.
Ugh.
Then we get George, you know, pulling Donna aside and laying into her, and then I'm like, okay, he at a certain point in this crosses a line.
Yeah.
Like he's it's obviously okay for him to lay into her. She was just involved in the burning down of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's classic, like, it feels classic dad to be laying into her before asking for her side of the story. Like, it would be better if he did, but
Yeah.
it feels real that he doesn't. We then hit the point at which I'm like, all right, George, now we've
Shut
got
up.
a problem, which is when he says, like, this is going to look bad for our family.
Yep.
Like, you've tainted all of us.
Dishonor on your whole family.
Right.
Yeah, essentially. And it's terrible. And it's so, like, oh my gosh, as a kid who criticized himself so hard for making mistakes, whenever, like,
this would be the worst thing to
yeah, to just have, like, the only reason I have a scrap of mental health is because my dad, when I would tell him I messed up, was like, well, that's unfortunate. Like,
Right.
so completely level-headed and would not, you know, kick me when I was down and was very empathetic, and we don't get any of that from George.
No.
George is losing his mind and worried about his job, and
Right.
his insecurities coming all over.
Yeah, but that is the thing, is while I'm like, this is bad,
It's
and I
well
hope
written.
the episode doesn't excuse it,
Yeah.
is my thought listening to it, is well constructed.
Mm-hmm.
You know the position, because we've been doing this, that George is in,
Yeah.
and the stresses in his life to where you can understand why this would be hard.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like, adding Normal into the mix was such a problem.
Yeah.
Because he was already on edge. Having Donna act out at all is now putting him on edge again. So it just, it's a really, it's really well written.
Yeah, he's got low resistance tolerance because he doesn't actively participate in self-care.
Yeah, because he's in a stressful period of his life and
Yeah.
either can't or doesn't feel like he can take a step back.
Which is really tough.
Yeah. Then he says, like, the gut punch of a line that is like, would you listen to a preacher who can't keep his own family under control?
Yeah, which I'm like, yo, you cannot.
Yeah, don't do this, George.
Don't do this.
Uh-huh. And then he picks up the phone, and it's Richard,
Yeah.
who's calling an emergency meeting of the pastoral committee, and George is like, all right, I'm done. They're following me.
They're gonna fire me.
They're firing me.
They're following me.
They're following me.
Down the alleyway with the homeless people. They know.
And so they're gonna, he's afraid they'll fire him, and then Donna gives a beautiful, earnest apology, and George just shrugs it off.
Yeah. And I was like, in this moment, this is when I see Donna overcorrecting and taking responsibility, taking the unhealthy responsibilities that her dad was putting on her.
She's
onto
like,
herself.
I'll do whatever I can to be perfect. Like, I'll sit with you guys up in the front of the church. I'll go to all your meetings. Like, because George lashed out at her. She is a child and is now going like,
oh God,
I need to do whatever I can to make this better, to make my dad like me again.
Yeah.
Let's just do all the things. And he shrugs it
and
off.
he's like, we'll talk about this when I get back.
It is incredible writing for both characters. They feel so real, and it also is one of those things that, listening through it the first time, you're terrified that the show is letting that be right.
He's gonna make Donna the bad guy here.
Right.
But
Then we get a good scene.
yes.
Richard starts off the meeting and is like, we're concerned, George, like, why we've called this, we're concerned. And George jumps in and is like, look, I just got to get stuff off my chest before we get into this. Like, let me say my piece, then you guys can do whatever. And this is when you can tell, like, he's had that car ride over to process and cool down.
Yep.
And, like, he's going to come out fighting for his family in this instant.
Yeah.
And you even get, like, a bit of him processing it out loud. Like, it's not like a prepared
she
speech.
even said that she'd be perfect, but, none of us are perfect. And how can she even expect herself to be perfect?
Right.
And he's realizing the flaws in this culture and this idea that, preachers' kids have to be perfect on the spot. And it's really cool. And it's a really great scene. And I love it when, TV shows and movies and stuff let characters audibly kind of figure out their thoughts, because that's what I do every moment of my life.
Yeah, it's why we have a podcast.
Yes, exactly.
It's what we did in Sacrificial Escape the first time. And the thing that like happens is, like, as soon as George interrupts Richard, you go, oh, okay, the episode knows.
Yeah.
Like, because they do that, like, Richard's going to say something, George interrupts. It's like, oh, then Richard was not going to say, you're fired, get your family in line. Because that's what George is overcorrecting now.
Yes.
But it lets George monologue and be like, look, she's a teenager. She's going to screw up. She's going to be punished. But, like, I need to cut her some slack. Like, I can't expect her to be perfect.
Anything other than what she is.
Just because we are the preacher's family now does not mean we are the perfect family. Like, you guys can't hold us to that. I can't hold us to that. So whatever, if you're going to do, this, like, if you want me as interim pastor, you're just going to have to accept us for who we are, warts and all.
Yeah. He goes, his verbal processing leads him to the point where he is putting his foot down in defense of his children and his family. And that was, the SpongeBob, like, wipes sweat from eyebrow. Whew, like, oh, thank goodness George is a good guy.
Yeah.
It took him the full episode, but he turned around at the end and really, really kills it. And then we get, the rest of the council being like, we weren't going to fire you. We want to know how we can help.
Yeah.
Which is a good moment.
Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm glad that, like, the church, like, that it's so real to life and to characters that George is putting all this pressure on himself, that it's not actually coming from the church.
Yeah, it's
and
perceived.
the little bit that is coming from the church through, Mrs. Erskine and whatnot, she then is like, she was the one who called this meeting. She wants to help. She apologizes, saying that, like, you know what? Like, she shows the good in what George just monologued and saying, like, you're right. I did expect you to be perfect, and I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have been doing that to you and your family. And it's great.
Yeah, it's such a kind moment. And yeah, I don't know. We've talked about it the whole episode as far as, like, I didn't see this ending coming, obviously, the first time listening to it. It comes around, but it hits well, and it hits home in a way that is really sweet because, George is a character that I have a lot of affection for, but I also have a strenuous relationship with because he definitely represents a certain theological view and a certain, like, cultural moment in Christian history where, like, that was how people were expected to act and things like that. But it was really cool to see him come down on the side of his family and really just going out guns blazing, like, actually, no, we all have our problems, really. And I'm not, I'm going to punish her and I'm going to do the best I can.
Like,
but I'm not going to be perfect.
I'm going to be a parent.
Yeah. Like, I'm not disowning responsibility. I'm setting responsibility with boundaries and with a good amount of self-awareness as far as what's a healthy amount of responsibility and punishment and such.
Yeah, it's really, it's just such a well-constructed episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These episodes
Marshall
have
Younger
been
just like
really good.
nailed the writing of this. Every character feels real. You can track with their beats. And it is all to make a really good point.
Yeah.
And so we go from here to George going home to talk to Donna and her immediately being like, once again, just being like, I'm going to do everything
sorry.
I can.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. Like, all that. And George was like, I went in there and they wanted to know how they could help. And I was wrong. Like, I shouldn't have put that.
Yeah, Mary's
pressure on
one
you.
line was right. She told George, you're overreacting, and she was right.
Yep. Yeah. And then. Right.
Hashtag give Maury more to do. Maury. Nope, don't give Maury more to do. Give
Maury way less.
Give Mary more to do. Give Maury way less.
Yeah. Maury has way too much rope. And then.
Man, I can't even believe that's the same show that we were covering those episodes.
Right? It is baffling
Yeah.
that we have like some of the best parent-child conversations in this series. Throughout
And
this.
also-
And we came off covering Wit being godparent and allowing a kid to terrorize other kids in the name of the Bible.
When you put it like that, I mean, it's what I've been thinking. So, you'd be right. But yeah, oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy. Point is, Pastor George Barkley saga, however many episodes we're into it, very much enjoying it.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah, and his final line, like where we end the episode, is him saying like, no matter how much you may disappoint me, I'll never stop loving you.
That is nice. Also, wow. That's a very harsh way of saying that.
It is. I was like, all right.
You disappoint me so much.
I didn't need disappoint as much as like,
Like-
no matter how much you screw up,
Yeah.
I won't stop disappointing you.
I don't
But-
view you as a sum of your mistakes.
Right.
That would work as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter how much you disappoint me. And
I
boy,
was
do
like,
you disappoint
I
me
was like,
every
wow,
day.
that was strong, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the final thing I want to hit on here is just a little excerpt from the official guide from Marshall Younger, who wrote and directed this. Just saying that much of my writing for the Barkley kids comes from my experience as a preacher's kid.
Oh, okay.
As well as the experience of people, a lot of people I knew who were sons and daughters of preachers. There seemed to be different rules for us. We were held to much higher standards than others, and I felt a sense of unfairness about it.
Yeah.
Which, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense that he wrote this one and A Call for Reverend Jimmy, and grew up the son of a pastor.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I get it. Well done, sir. Like, no wonder these episodes are good.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they're really speaking on something that they have real life experience with.
And yeah, and awesome for McCusker, who's been shepherding this saga, to be like, there's a writer on our team
Who knows this.
who
He's
like
got it.
has the experience here. Let's like have him take ownership of a couple of these episodes.
Yeah. That really makes
Because
them
like he can
interesting.
speak it from his heart and from his own experience, rather than me, who like obviously McCusker's doing research and doing a really good job on his episodes, but just that humility of going like, there's someone on our team who could do this better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Is great. And then Younger goes on to write that like this is just one of those episodes that's like a struggle for like Odyssey, where like because of the calls they made through the episode, like they got a lot of letters, both from people who were saying like Donna, like you guys made Donna too rebellious in this episode, and letters from people saying the parents were way too easy on the kids. And I'm just like, it makes sense. It's the reason that you and I were freaked out at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
It makes sense that like listeners to this show would have that reaction, but I think this show hits the perfect medium.
No, they really do.
And that
they've done
Donna
that.
doesn't seem like she is actively rebelling, rebelling.
No.
Her one act of rebellion is skipping out on a Bible study to go to a hayride. And then that snowballs.
Yeah, and that turns into something
But
else.
she makes a rebellious decision that then and it's because of like an immense amount of peer pressure.
Yeah,
like
and an immense amount of pressure from her parents as well.
She just
And she even mentioned
she's
that. I
getting
feel so
pressure
much
from
pressure.
both sides, and so it just makes like. Yeah, I'm just like, you threaded the needle really well. Like, I understand why listeners to a show produced by Focus on the Family would have
Issues with how middle of the road this is.
Right, with Donna's rebellion and with, the way, like, she kind of gets away with it. But it is I'm so glad that this is the way they did it.
Yeah, because it's the most true to life, and it's the most true to, like you said, these characters, they feel like real people, and it's because it was written by somebody that has real life experience.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Yeah.
All right.
That being said, I mean, we kind of touched on my discussion question. I was going to talk about, like, the standard that we set, like, if you're, like, a Christian elite within the church and stuff like that, like, how people look at you differently and expect more of you and things like that.
Well, and we talked about it in the past, I think, with Reverend Jimmy, where we were talking about our own experiences, kind of feeling like we had to be, leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously, like, it makes sense for, like, I understand George's perspective fully, where he's like, I am the pastor. I am just like filling in, like I got kind of thrust
barely
into
the
this.
pastor.
Right. I don't want to lose this job, and people are looking to us to be better than what we are right now. We need to do better.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why George feels that. It's the beauty of the writing of this show, where I'm like, his motivations make sense. He's in the wrong, but his motivations make sense.
Yeah.
Same with Donna. Her motivations make sense, even though she is complicit in burning down a house.
Well, the lantern, the burning down the house thing is
right.
I cannot believe that's what they went with.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been like the whole, we shouldn't go out on the pack ice and then somebody falls in trope.
The other form of rebellion in a small town.
Don't go on that river ice. It's thin. And then it breaks.
Anything else you wanted to say about the episode?
No. I am fresh out of takes.
Yeah. We jokingly referenced we jokingly plugged our Spotify's earlier in the episode. You want to do that for real here at the end?
Yeah. I'm just Andrew Acebo on Spotify. It's linked to my Facebook account, so you should be able to see my profile picture.
And I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah.
And I am American Sherlock.
That he is. I just put out a playlist full of sad music called Hot Chocolate Hands, and I made it off of the idea that, like, when you're really cold and you grab a cup of hot chocolate, it burns your hands. Okay. And it's that weird feeling where you get the tingly feeling in your hands where it's, like, so hot it feels like pins and needles. I don't know why that was my inspiration to listen to sad music, but it was. So,
Yeah.
To each their own.
I might have to give that a spin. I have not put out a playlist in a long time, but you can
that's
still
a bit
follow
of
me.
an effort for you.
There's a lot of other playlists there that you can enjoy.
Yes, there is a myriad, a wealth.
Yeah.
That being said,
I've got nothing else to say here.
I got nothing else to say here.
All right, and then we will be back in a week with Pokenberry Falls RFD Part 1.
Bye, guys.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, oh boy, it is.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at Wadfam Chalk Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Preacher's Kid was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.